Let's find out. We're joined now by Senator Marco Rubio from the great state of Florida. Thank you for joining us, Senator. What do you make on the march on Moscow by the Wagner Group? Was it a near coup? Were they bluffing? And what now?
Well, I think it's a lot like a mafia movie. I mean, Prigozhin had a long-time problem with the defense minister and the chief of staff of the army. Frankly, Wagner is full of criminals, and he's a criminal, but they outperformed the Russian military and have embarrassed them. I think he concluded they were going to come after him, so he needed to go after them first. And so he marched on Rostov, which is where the headquarters were, and tried to at least capture and put on trial or whatever he wanted to do to the head of the Gerasimov, who's the head of the army. But the guy escaped, and then he started marching on Moscow. I think he realized that that probably would not be wise, that they'd probably be defeated at some point in that. And so he cut this deal through the mediation of the fake president of Belarus. And then Putin goes on TV a couple days later and says, whatever promises were made to you, we're not going to keep them. So I think, frankly, this was a survival thing more than anything else for him. He wanted to get rid of those guys, and he thought embarrassing them and or capturing them would force Putin to do it. And now we'll see what happens. It's quite uncertain. There's still the loss of Wagner in Ukraine, it's going to badly hurt the Russians. They're actually better equipped, better trained, better fed than regular Russian troops are.
All right, let's span the globe. What is the latest with China and Cuba?
Well, both China and Russia have had an intelligence presence in Cuba for a while. I think there's concern now, as it's been reported in the media. They're expanding on the ability to collect electronically on us, listen to, out of Cuba, obviously your position great to Central Command in Tampa, Special Operations Command is in Tampa, Southern Command is in Miami, NASA, multiple military installations up the southeast. So it's a huge intelligence threat. The thing I keep an eye on very closely beyond that is there now going to be a Chinese military presence, a base of some sort, which is something the Chinese intend to do somewhere in the Western Hemisphere. It would be the first time since the Cuban Missile Crisis in which you have a large permanent contingent of a foreign adversary military presence, not just in our hemisphere, but 90 miles off the coast of Key West. An unacceptable situation, and one that I think this administration should be focused on and making very clear that we would not tolerate or not allow, making it very clear to the Cuban regime that if they cross that line, we will have to take measures against them and really shouldn't limit what those measures would be in that scenario, because that would be the most direct challenge to our national security in the Western Hemisphere since the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Well, I'm going to ask you about two things that, at least to me, seem unrelated, but you're a smart guy. Maybe there is a connection. What's going on in the Middle East, and what am I reading about UFOs?
Oh, I don't know how related those two things are, but we can try to mix them up. Look, in the Middle East, there's a lot going on right now. Unfortunately, Saudi Arabia has a terrible relationship with the Biden administration. And, they view themselves as an emerging regional power. And they're leveraging, like a lot of these developing countries are in the Middle East. And they're trying to create a relationship as well with this group called the BRICS group, Brazil, Russia, India. And maybe even conduct some transactions away from the U.S. dollar in a different currency, which is a direct challenge to the dollar as the global reserve currency. That, and of course, this Iran deal. The administration is cooking up some sort of secret deal with Iran. We find out now that the person in charge of that for Biden is being investigated. His clearances have been suspended. And I think that story is going to get even worse. And we don't know anything about the secret deal, which has a tremendous impact. I think now more than ever, Congress not only needs to be aware of what's in the secret deal, but actually weigh in on it. And I include in that Democrats and say, we need to know what this deal is, especially if it's been negotiated by a guy who right now has been suspended because he may have violated the laws of this country. And on the other issue, look, here's what I've told everybody. I haven't seen anything. I don't know anything more than what you see on television. What I do know is this: people with, important government jobs now or in the past with very high clearances, doing some really important work or that have done really important work for the U.S. government, have come forward and made claims about the U.S. being in possession of exotic materials and the like. And so my view of it is, when you have so many people in that category, right? These are not people off the street. These are people that work in the government or have on really important things coming forward making these claims. One of two things is plausible here, or true. Either A, they're telling the truth, and I think if that's the case, we most certainly need to know about that. Or B, we got a lot of people in high positions of government who are either out of their minds or deliberately deceiving us. Either one of those two things is a problem. And so we've had these people come forward, including a whistleblower through their whistleblower process. By law, we're required to take that seriously. The Inspector General has referred it to the committee as an urgent concern and one with some credibility to it. So we'll do our job. And, I think we can't ignore these claims that are being made. The law doesn't even allow us to ignore it. But again, we have one or two problems. Either what they're saying is true, or we have some people in some really important jobs in government now or in the past who are all conspiring to mislead us, or maybe they're all, not well. I mean, I'm not making that claim. I'm just saying we've got to figure this out.
You raise a great point, Senator. It is relevant whether it is true or not, and got to get to the bottom of it. And for that, we are thankful that you are on a committee with vast and important jurisdiction in the Senate. Thank you, Marco Rubio from the great state of Florida. Happy early 4th to you and your family.
Thank you, Trey. Thank you. Likewise to you and to everyone watching.